Los Angeles, July 1988. The air inside the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum hummed with anticipation, a living, breathing entity of its own. More than 300,000 souls had gathered that evening, pressed together in a sea of humanity that stretched as far as the eye could see. The Bad World Tour had already broken records across the globe, but tonight felt different. Special. The California sky had turned a deep purple as the last remnants of daylight faded into memory. For almost 20 minutes, the stadium had been plunged into darkness, the only illumination coming from thousands of lighters and the occasional camera flash that rippled across the crowd like summer lightning. The silence was deafening, punctuated only by the occasional chant of "Michael, Michael, Michael," that would rise up from one section before being swallowed again by the anticipatory quiet. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, straining to see the empty stage. Teenagers clutched homemade signs with trembling hands. Adults who had grown up with the Jackson 5 stood alongside newer fans who had discovered Michael through Thriller and Bad. They were all there for one reason, united by their love for a performer who had redefined what it meant to be an entertainer. The air was thick with perfume, sweat, and expectation. And then, without warning, the first synthesizer notes of "Wanna Be Startin' Something" cut through the darkness like a knife. The crowd erupted. A single spotlight pierced the blackness, revealing an empty microphone stand at center stage. The music built, layer upon layer, the percussion joining the synthesizer in perfect harmony. And then, as if materialized from the collective dreams of 300,000 people, he appeared. Michael Jackson, dressed in a tailored black suit adorned with gold military-style embellishments, his signature white socks gleaming under the spotlights, and atop his head, the black fedora that had become as iconic as the man himself. The roar that greeted him was physical, a wall of sound that crashed over the stage. Women fainted. Men wept openly. Children screamed with joy. For 2 hours, Michael commanded the stage with a presence that seemed almost supernatural. Every movement was precise, deliberate, yet somehow effortless. His voice soared over the stadium, reaching even those in the furthest rows. The energy never waned, building with each song, each dance move, each interaction with the adoring crowd. By the time he transitioned into Smooth Criminal, the audience was completely entranced. The choreography for this number was particularly demanding, with Michael and his dancers executing complex moves that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. The iconic lean, the sharp angular arm movements, the spinning that would leave any ordinary performer dizzy and disoriented. Michael performed them all with flawless precision. But then, something unexpected happened. During a particularly vigorous spin, Michael's fedora, normally secured with careful precision, slipped forward, completely covering his eyes. For a split second, the perfectionist performer faltered, his hands instinctively moving upward to correct the mishap. The music continued, the dancers maintained their rhythm. But Michael stood momentarily blind, the brim of his hat completely obscuring his vision. The crowd held its collective breath. This was Michael Jackson, after all, the king of pop, the perfectionist, the man who had famously stopped entire concerts if a single element was out of place. How would he react to this unexpected disruption to his meticulously planned performance? The answer came immediately, and it was nothing anyone could have predicted. Instead of quickly adjusting the hat and continuing with the choreography, Michael froze in place. Then, with exquisite comic timing, he began to move like a cartoon character who had lost their sight. Arms outstretched, feeling the air around him, taking exaggerated, cautious steps. "Hello," he called out, his voice playfully uncertain. "Is anybody there?" The stadium erupted in laughter. 300,000 people, who moments before had been mesmerized by his otherworldly talent, now found themselves delighted by this glimpse of spontaneous humor. Michael continued the bit, spinning slowly with his arms extended, pretending to search for his dancers, who played along perfectly, dancing just beyond his reach. "I know you're out there," he called, turning his head from side to side despite the hat still covering his eyes. The laughter grew, rolling across the stadium in waves. Parents lifted children higher so they wouldn't miss this unexpected moment of comedy. Couples clutched each other, pointing and giggling. Even a usually stoic security personnel at the front of the stage could be seen breaking into smiles. After nearly a minute of this impromptu comedy routine, Michael finally lifted the brim of the hat with one gloved hand, peering out at the audience with wide, exaggerated surprise, as if seeing them for the first time. "Oh, there you are," he exclaimed, his voice carrying through the stadium speakers. The laughter that followed was so loud, so all-encompassing, that it temporarily drowned out the music. 300,000 people united in joy, in appreciation not just of Michael's unparalleled talent, but of his humanity, his ability to find humor in imperfection. If this story brings a smile to your face, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more unforgettable moments from Michael's extraordinary life and career. We share these stories to keep his legacy alive, to remember not just the perfectionist performer, but the man who could laugh at himself and bring joy to millions. In that moment, as the laughter began to subside, Michael smoothly readjusted his fedora to its proper position and, without missing another beat, launched back into the intricate choreography of Smooth Criminal, as if the interruption had been planned all along. But something had changed in the atmosphere of the stadium. There was a new warmth, a deeper connection between performer and audience. They had shared something rare and special, a glimpse behind the carefully constructed persona of the king of pop to the playful, spontaneous human being beneath. For many fans in attendance that night, this moment would become one of their most treasured memories of Michael. Years later, those who were there remembered not just the spectacular dancing, not just the perfect vocals, not just the innovative staging, but that moment of unscripted humanity when a simple wardrobe malfunction transformed into comedy gold. The rest of the concert continued with the same precision and energy that had made Michael Jackson the biggest star in the world. He performed all his hits, from A Jackson 5 Days through to his latest album. He moonwalked, he spun, he hit impossible high notes, he connected with the crowd in that mysterious, magical way that only the truly great performers can achieve. But there was an added dimension now, an occasional playful adjustment of the fedora that would elicit knowing laughter from the audience, a shared inside joke between the performer and his fans. After the final encore, as the last notes of Man in the Mirror faded into the night and Michael took his final bow, he removed his fedora and held it out toward the audience in a gesture of offering. The spotlight caught the rhinestones on his glove, sending prismatic reflections dancing across the stadium. He stood there for a long moment, the fedora extended, his face reflecting the complex mixture of exhaustion, gratitude, and something that looked almost like shyness that often came over him after performances. And then, in a gesture that would be remembered and recounted for years afterward, he playfully flipped the fedora back onto his head, only to intentionally let it slip down over his eyes again. The stadium exploded with laughter and applause. It was the perfect ending, a callback to the unscripted moment that had, in many ways, defined the evening. As the house lights came up and the massive crowd began the slow process of filing out of the stadium, countless conversations all centered around the same moment. The fedora, the blind stumbling, the laughter that had united hundreds of thousands of strangers in shared joy. For many fans, particularly younger ones who had grown up seeing Michael as an almost mythical figure, this glimpse of playfulness and humanity made them feel connected to him in a new way. They had seen the perfectionist willing to laugh at himself, to transform a mistake into a moment of delight. The fedora itself took on new significance after that night. Always an iconic part of Michael's stage wardrobe, it now represented something more. His ability to find joy in imperfection, to connect with his audience not just through flawless performance, but through shared humanity. In a merchandise stands outside the stadium, fedoras sold out within minutes of the concert's end. For weeks afterward, fans would show up to other stops on the tour wearing black fedoras, hoping to see a repeat of the moment, occasionally even playfully pulling their own hats down over their eyes when Michael would take the stage. The Los Angeles Times review of the concert, published the following day, devoted an entire paragraph to what the writer called the Fedora incident, describing it as a rare glimpse of spontaneous play from music's most choreographed perfectionist. The moment was captured by several amateur videographers in the crowd, and though the footage was grainy by today's standards, it would eventually find its way to early internet video sharing sites and later to YouTube, where new generations of fans could witness this humanizing moment in the life of a legend. One such video, uploaded nearly 20 years after the concert took place, would garner millions of views and thousands of comments from fans expressing how this brief moment of unscripted humor changed their perception of Michael Jackson. "I always thought of him as this untouchable, perfect performer," wrote one commenter. "Seeing him play with the audience like this, turning a mistake into something joyful, it made me love him even more." Perhaps what made the moment so special, so enduring in the memories of those who witnessed it, was how rare such unscripted incidents were in Michael's meticulously planned performances. This was a man known for his perfectionism, for rehearsing until every movement, every note, every lighting cue was exactly as he envisioned it. For such a performer to not only embrace an unexpected moment, but to transform it into one of the highlights of the evening spoke volumes about his genius, his adaptability, and his deep understanding of what an audience truly desires. Not just technical perfection, but authentic connection. In the years that followed, as Michael's life became increasingly complicated and his public image more fraught with controversy, many of the fans who had been present that night in Los Angeles would return to the memory of the Fedora moment as a reminder of who he truly was beneath the headlines and speculation. A consummate entertainer who found joy in bringing happiness to others, who could laugh at himself, who understood that sometimes the most magical moments are the ones you don't plan. 4. That black fedora would remain in Michael's performance wardrobe for years to come, featuring prominently in music videos, album covers, and countless live performances. And occasionally, though never in a way that felt forced or repetitive, he would incorporate a playful adjustment of the hat into his choreography. A small nod to those who had been there in Los Angeles, who had been part of that moment of shared joy and laughter. Decades later, long after Michael had left this world, a special exhibition of his stage costumes and personal effects would tour major museums around the world. Among the iconic white gloves, the military-style jackets, and the red leather of Thriller, there would be a display case containing a seemingly ordinary black fedora. Next to it, a small placard would tell the story of the Los Angeles concert, of the hat that slipped, of the laughter that united 300,000 people in a moment of unexpected joy. And visitors to the exhibition, many of whom had not even been born when that concert took place, would stand before that simple black hat and smile, connecting across time and space with a moment of unscripted humanity from a performer often thought of as superhuman. In a career filled with record-breaking albums, revolutionary music videos, and performances that redefined what was possible on a stage, it might seem strange that such a small, unplanned moment would leave such a lasting impression. But perhaps that's precisely why it endured, because in that moment of imperfection, in that playful response to an unexpected situation, Michael Jackson revealed something true about himself that all the carefully choreographed performances in the world could never quite capture. If you've enjoyed this glimpse into one of the more lighthearted moments of Michael's career, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We're dedicated to preserving these memories, to sharing the stories that reveal not just the performer, but the person behind the legend. Your support helps us continue this work. And the next time you see footage of Michael performing in his iconic fedora, perhaps you'll remember this story, this moment when a simple wardrobe malfunction became something magical, a shared experience of joy that, for a few precious minutes, made 300,000 strangers feel like family, united in laughter and in appreciation for an artist who, even in an unplanned moment, knew exactly how to touch our hearts. After the exhibition ended its run, the fedora was purchased at auction by an anonymous buyer for a sum that made headlines around the world. Rumors circulated that the buyer was a former child fan who had been the audience that night in Los Angeles, now grown and successful enough to acquire this piece of personal history. Whether true or not, There is something poetic about the idea that this simple hat, this catalyst for a moment of unexpected connection, might have found its way back to someone who had experienced that magic firsthand. The Fedora now reportedly sits in a private collection, carefully preserved under museum-quality glass. But its true legacy isn't in its physical preservation. It's in the memories of those 300,000 people who, for one magical evening in Los Angeles, laughed together as one, united by the playful humanity of a performer who, despite his otherworldly talent, was in that moment joyfully, delightfully human.